Republicans need to keep the House majority in 2026. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, explains in under 60 seconds.
Well, it's a central intersection. If Trump can pull off what Franklin Roosevelt did and actually increase seats in the House, we will have affirmed the direction we're moving in. He'll have 2 more years of real reform and a chance then to elect a successor who continues the same momentum. If Trump loses the House in 26, he's back in a Nancy Pelosi problem. There'll be huge investigations, probable impeachments, fights over money. It'll be a mess.
All right, guys, good Thursday to you. Normally I'd be saying it's Friday, but this is like a Friday, isn't it? It's just like a Friday because tomorrow is 4th of July. So, I mean, unless, I don't know. I'm sure some people have to work, so I know that. I appreciate all those people who do work to keep the economy going tomorrow. Thank you to all of you. Thanks to everyone who gives us the ability to continue. I know we have a day for Veterans Day. We got a day for Memorial Day to memorize, but tomorrow we celebrate our country. And I hope that we actually can think for a moment about where we are as a country, how great it is, what we're doing. The election in New York last week threw me. The reaction to the Democrats and the media to the Army's 250th anniversary threw me. Because, this is still the greatest country on earth. Capitalism works. It gives us amazing innovation and an amazing I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't even mean to, I feel like I should be describing this. You all get it. But when you see what we've done as a country, how far that we've come, and then you got these nut jobs on the left that go elect that socialist in New York, 33-year-old nut job that wants to socialize everything, government controlled grocery stores, etc. I do question when I see the media and the left react to the Army's 250th anniversary, calling it Trump's parade and militarizing whatever. We can't stop for a moment and thank and honor the sacrifice of so many people. What's wrong? So we should lead the way as we head into the 4th of July. And what I mean by that is all these people were saying after the Army thing, maybe we should be reaching out and trying to help these Democrats. Okay, that's fine. I'll do my part. And I think you guys do it. But let's be the bigger people. Let's acknowledge and love the country tomorrow and celebrate it. Just show it's not partisan. And if they want to back themselves into a corner, that's them. Anyway, I'm excited to play a discussion that I had with Newt Gingrich earlier. He's gotten another amazing book out. I think the guy's written 45 books on so many topics, healthcare, etc. But he's got another one out right now called Trump's Triumph. It's an unbelievable description of what the president has overcome to get where he is and what he faces. So I want to have a couple of our amazing sponsors. I want to tell you about a couple of our amazing sponsors and then bring in the former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. You guys have heard me talk about this before on my wellness journey. The best thing, the most important thing, frankly, no matter everything else you do, you've got to get a good night's sleep. You can eat healthy all you want. You can get rid of all the dyes, the ultra-processed food. But if you're not getting a good night's sleep, then it's for naught. I have literally made every night part of my routine Beam's Dream Powder. Where's my little bag here? This is the one I just crushed. I crushed another one the other day of the brownie flavor. I'm back on the cocoa one because I think that's amazing. They're all great flavors. And here's the kicker. It is all natural. It's got melatonin, magnesium, reishi, apigen, L-theanine, all natural stuff and stuff that you've probably taken before as a pill. This is all in one amazing blend. I take 1 scoop before bedtime. I use it in hot water, put it in the microwave for 30 seconds. Some people tell me they like milk. I don't really care. Maybe you don't even like it hot. I do. 30 minutes later, my head hits the pillow and I'm out. I wake up feeling completely energized, rip-roaring, ready to go. No grogginess, no nothing. I'm telling you, if you want to get healthier, the key to everything is a great night's sleep. And Beam's Dream Powder is literally part of my routine every night. I jump out of bed if I miss it because I know the difference between whether I take it or not. And right now they're giving the ultimate Patriot discount to every one of you. 40% off. You just go to shopbeam.com/Spicer. Shopbeam.com/Spicer. 40% off the ultimate Patriot discount. This is a great American company. Invest in them, invest in yourself and your wellness. Shopbeam.com/Spicer. Oh, do I have some good news for you? If you love grilling in the summer, or frankly, all year round, because that's what I do, especially as you have another holiday outing coming up this weekend, go do yourself a huge favor and go to riverbendranch.com and check out the amazing products. I did this last weekend and it was a huge hit. I love steaks. That's my thing. I do steaks. I do omelets in the morning. That's it. Okay, I'm not trying to kid anybody with all of my culinary action. No. Just steaks and some hot dogs and sausages, by the way. I will tell you, I crushed it. Ribeye, New York strip, and the filet mignon. Oh my goodness. And by the way, I cooked hot dogs for the kids and I ate 2 of those myself. They're that good. If you're a hot dog lover, don't just buy the steaks. Get some of the hot dogs and the ground beef. I'm telling you, you will be the hit of the barbecue. This is so good, and you cannot get this stuff in any kind of store. This is ranch to you. And these guys are not kidding. 35 years of getting the best flavoring, tenderness, marbling. You will be a huge hit. These are some of the best steaks I've had in my life. And that includes all the restaurants that I've been to under big fancy expense accounts. Trust me when I tell you, when you go to riverbendranch.com, you will not ever regret it. And you can use code Sean, SEAN, for $20 off your first order. By the way, I've been told my next order is including the beef jerky. Check it out if you're a beef jerky fan as well. riverbendranch.com, code word Sean for 20% off. All right, without further ado, the Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, welcome back to the show. Congratulations on the book, Trump's Triumph, America's Greatest Comeback. I got my copy. First of all, I was checking the rankings. I mean, once again, Newt Gingrich crushing it on the book sales.
Well, look, we're very delighted. We just learned that we made bestseller for USA Today. We're doing very well on Amazon. So, I think the topic of Trump's triumph and America's greatest comeback is very timely, given everything we're living through.
So just before, I want a quick housekeeping issue. First of all, thank you. My wife appreciates this because you are the only person that literally has a shelf in my house. And I was trying to count. I don't know how many I'm missing. How many books is this now that you have?
I think it's 44 or 45.
Okay. I think when you lose track of how many books you have written, that says something about it. But it's amazing here at 45 or whatever number you're at, you're still a best-selling author over and over again. There's a reason I think that the publishers love coming back to you. But I got to tell you, the first thing I just want to say when I got through with this is it's 250 pages. It's a very I learned to accept this as a compliment. I hope you do too. It's an easy read, but the historical context that you put around issues is just so brilliant, because it's one thing just to talk about Trump or what's happening. But you really add in Reagan and Lincoln. I mean, I loved thinking about these issues in the context of our history.
We began talking about this book in October because I was certain Trump was going to win. And I knew that with everything we'd been through, that getting beyond the daily news or sometimes hourly news and trying to put it in context. What does his triumph mean? And to what extent is America coming back? I thought framing it in historic terms would be particularly useful, and also useful, frankly, in beginning to set up the 26th election. So I was very pleased. Louis Brogdon, who helped immensely with this, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, just before the book came out, because we started in October. And a lot had happened. And I said, go back through it and tell me what we missed. And he came back and he said, I feel pretty good. We missed.
I did too.
He said, we missed Gulf of America. And we missed trying to annex Canada and Greenland. He said, that's it.
I'm not sure those are misses, though.
Well,
because you do a really good job with Doge, which I felt, I was thinking the same thing, because from doing this, I have a little bit of a taste of this, that, the publisher needs time to take it, to go through it all, format it, whatever. And I kept thinking to myself, how close to current times is he going to get? You go through Doge, you obviously preview, you end the book you mentioned with 2026. You're being a little hard on yourself and your team if you're looking for what you missed, because I didn't even pick that up. So, But there's something I want to start with, something that you wrote that kind of is relevant to what's happening in the country right now. And then obviously I do want to get into sort of the campaign you guys talk about. And I love the way that you talk about where you and Ambassador Gingrich were, in the moments. You guys do a really good job of bringing you into election day down in Palm Beach. And anyway, so I want to get into all that. But there was something because of what's happening in the country today that I wanted to start the conversation with. Because you talk about immigration a lot in the book. And on page 89, there was something that jumped out at me. You said, finally, there's a difficult question of what to do about young people who are brought to the United States at such early ages that they have no memory of their former country and often no language skills except English. There's a consensus that something must be done to provide them with a path to citizenship. However, the challenges are significant. I agree. Now, here's what I believe, and I've maintained. I feel bad for these people. Many of them, as you kind of allude to, through no fault of their own, were brought to the country by people when they were young. They know nothing else. My solution is the following. I believe that you give them permanent sort of access to America, like a green card, but not citizenship. You don't reward that behavior, even though it's not their fault. I guess the question I have is, why is it that we have to start this conversation with a path to citizenship?
Well, I think the country was so upset about the scale of illegal immigration that you couldn't even have a conversation. I just saw a clip from the State of the Union in '95 when I first became Speaker, and I'm sitting behind Bill Clinton. And Clinton is talking about illegal immigration. I mean, this issue has been with us and with us and with us. And I think that Trump's success in, for the first time, really sealing off the border and the aggressiveness of going after criminal illegal aliens, the country will start to calm down. I don't think anybody believes we're going to deport 10 or 12 million people. It's too big a project. So at some point, we will move into a discussion about the right kind of transitions. And frankly, your proposal is a good one. If you came here at 2 or 3 or 4 years of age, literally do not even speak the language of whatever country your parents came from, graduated, as a valedictorian in your local high school, and now have become a nurse or a doctor, there ought to be some way that you can get a green card and be a permanent resident. And then we can talk later on about, if you have 10, 15, 20 years of law-abiding permanent residence, maybe then you get eligible to apply for citizenship. But I don't think there's an immediate jump to being eligible to be citizen. But there should be a jump to being legal. So
that's right. Lock it in, right? I agree that's to me is let's not, go after people who wasn't their fault. But I don't think the first step, and that's where a lot of Democrats go, they have to have a path to citizenship. My answer is, okay, maybe permanent residency where you're here, which is what a lot of people are. A lot of business people are. There's no reason that you automatically get to vote.
Look, just getting them a path to legality is a huge achievement. And
I like that phrase, a path to legality.
Right, and most of them would be very happy if that happened. As I think you remember, Calista and I did a show for PBS called Journey to America, which was legal immigrants, including Henry Kissinger, who I think did his last TV interview for us before he passed away. And our goal was to say to people, you can be against illegal immigration, but you have to be for legal immigration. And the dreamers are caught in the middle. They came as an accident because their parents came here illegally, but they are overwhelmingly hardworking, achieving, law-abiding people. And so getting a path to legality, I think, would be the logical next step and should be a lot less controversial than trying to get them to citizenship.
Right. I agree. The interesting thing is you mentioned when you were speaker back in '94, the thing that's so fascinating to me is as I'm reading the book, you did a great job of complimenting the work of America First Policy Institute, Brooke Rollins, Linda McMahon, and then you talked about your own group, America's New Majority, and the polling that you guys did with John McLaughlin and his team over there to really make sure that people knew the right messages to say. And I was thinking to myself how things have changed since the 90s and the infrastructure that we've built, some of what you've done on healthcare, on America's New Majority, America First Policy Institute. And as I was reading the book, I thought to myself, wow, like this infrastructure wasn't there for decades. And now we suddenly have the support from the outside that we never had to tell us, hey, this is the message to articulate this policy on. Here are the 60 and 80% issues that you enumerated in the book that make sense.
Yeah, look, I think it's important to recognize if you're going to be a governing majority, you have to be in the business of solving problems. If you're in opposition, all you got to do is vote no. But you can't. It's not just voting yes. It's coming up with ideas that will actually solve something. And the American people expect government to work. They want to know that their border is safe. They want to know that their neighborhood is safe. They want to know that they have an economy that creates jobs. Go down a whole list of things. And I think that what you have is a country which believes for the first time in a long time that changes are coming. I was very struck about 2 weeks ago. The Rasmussen poll came out and had 50% of the country now believes we're on the right track. And the director of the poll said he never thought we'd get to 50%. He is astounded. And it's the first time in the history of the poll that half the country thinks we're on the right track. And I think that's because despite all the noise and all the stuff that the elite media covers, people believe Trump is trying. That
Yes.
he's moving in a direction they believe in, and that most of his fights are for the right cause. And so, he has a real chance here to, if we can only get the House and Senate Republicans to fully understand that the most important thing about the big, beautiful bill is passing it. Because if it gets passed, even if it's inadequate, it's a momentum builder that sets the stage for another bill. And when we balanced the federal budget in 4 years, the only time in 100 years that it was balanced for 4 straight years, we didn't do it in one bill. We had a series. It took 4 years of steady, hard work. Well, we're in deeper trouble now, so it's probably going to take 7 or 8 years. But this big, beautiful bill is a good start. And if you're going to be a governing party, you find a way to vote yes, not a way to vote no. If you want to be a minority party, finding a way to vote no is fine.
So you actually wrote in the book, and I, of all people, I don't know, I kind of reacted negatively, but I get why you put it in there. But you wrote that you bump into Joe Scarborough at the anniversary of the contract with America, and he reminded you that the only times that we've had balanced budgets 4 years in a row is after you guys did the hard work there. If you were advising them, the current House majority right now, what would you say? Because I believe that it's not just growth, which is what you guys did, but you also slowed the rate of growth, went after government spending. I tell people all the time, the greatest thing that you ever did, I shouldn't say that, not the greatest thing, but one of the greatest things was when you walked around with the ice bucket, and it was the manifestation of explaining waste. It was Doge before Doge was cool. And it explained to people that, like, yeah, this is 150 or 180 grand of wasted money because we're delivering ice to every congressional office in the mid 1990s when everyone has a refrigerator and a freezer. But I always got the message, to your point about Trump fighting, that the message that Newt Gingrich was trying to send was, I respect your dollars. I respect the hard work that you are doing to send money to Washington, and I will get rid of waste, inefficiencies, duplicities. And I feel like if you had to go back up to the Hill today and to say to these guys, if you want to get back to a balanced budget, the answer is what?
Well, I think the answer is 3 or 4 key things. I mean, first of all, you have to win the argument that you're about balancing the budget. People will accept spending cuts to get to a balanced budget, that they won't accept if it's just part of a deficit. Because the theory is, look, if we're going to run a deficit anyway, I want mine.
Right.
But if this is the price of getting to a balanced budget, well, then I'll take some of the heat. Second, they have to have economic growth on a grand scale. And this is where the Congressional Budget Office is an anti-conservative disaster and should be abolished. They deliberately undercount the likely economic growth. Therefore, an economic growth generates trillions of dollars in revenue if you're growing fast enough. Third, you have to have big reforms. I just wrote a piece at Gingrich 360 arguing that Make America Healthy Again could, in fact, take 4 percentage points of the gross domestic product out of our cost, because we have the most expensive health system in the world. We have the sickest children of any industrial society because we've been following policies that are crazy. And what if the children didn't become sick? What if you didn't have to spend money taking care of obese 5-year-olds who are going to become obese 20-year-olds and then obese 40-year-olds, and their lifetime cost is probably 20 or 30 times the cost of somebody who's not obese? So, for example, most places have taken physical education out of the curriculum. These kids don't get outside. They don't exercise. Well, that's a pretty straight fix. Put physical education back in and have a recess and have little kids go out and run around. They'll be healthier. They won't cost nearly as much, and they'll have better lives. And there are a whole series of these things. I've worked closely with some of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s people on this whole idea of Make America Healthy Again, and I'm convinced that that's kind of reform. The other big reform, of course, is if you get money from the federal government and you're able-bodied, you have to work. When I hear these guys say, well, you can't touch Medicaid, that means they want to pay money to illegal immigrants, they want to pay money to crooks, and they want to pay money to adults who refuse to work. Now, the country thinks those policies are crazy. So you can win the fights on big change. And then finally, you have to pinch pennies, as you said about the ice bucket. I mean, the ice bucket in isolation is a drop in the bucket. But the ice bucket is a symbol of going through the entire federal budget and taking out everything you can to save money. That's a different thing.
Since we started to go down healthcare, you talked about something in the book that I thought was fascinating, because I've always believed that it comes back to money. Everything is, is somebody trying to make sure that they keep their pot of money, that they block somebody else. And we have a healthcare issue. You talk extensively about this in the book, and I love this issue. I know you talk about all of the healthcare, the center that you guys have set up, the work that you've done, the books that you wrote with that woman, Ann Woodbury, I believe it is. So it's a great, but one of the things that caught my eye was this example that you gave about ophthalmology and about how we have this shortage both of general practice doctors, but then like ophthalmologists, right? And so you would think, especially in like rural America, how can we bring services to them? And I was really caught and struck by the example that you gave about who blocked the ability for some of this technology to be employed so that people could get the eye care that they need. And it was just, it blew my mind. I'd rather have you tell the story because it's your book.
It's very straightforward. There is a computer device which can measure your eyes and which clearly meets the standard. You could alternate years. There's a general recommendation that you see an optometrist or an ophthalmologist every 2 years. So in the alternating year, you could use this computer. It's convenient, it's inexpensive. And in state after state, the optometrist and the ophthalmologist political action committees and their lobbyists make it illegal because they want the money. I tell people a great deal of health care is actually captured in the movie where the football star says, "Show me the money."
Oh, yeah, Jerry Maguire.
And if you just think Jerry Maguire, you understand what a great deal of health fight is. Everybody wants the money. And they talk piously about health, but they talk passionately about money. And as you said, way back in 2003, I wrote a book called Saving Lives and Saving Money with that title to make the point that health is a moral issue, and you first have to save lives, and then you're allowed to save money, but you can never save money at the expense of saving lives. Well, the current system is really screwed up, and it's really driven by profit, not by profession, and it's really driven by economic self-interest, not the interest of healthcare. And the other thing I'd say, which Joe DeSantis, who works with us, came up with, We have a sick care system, not a health
Yes.
care system. What we ought to be doing is trying to keep you healthy, which is cheap, rather than wait for you to get sick enough. And what we do is, well, when you get sick enough, we're happy to spend lots of money that we could have avoided if we simply kept you healthy.
Yeah, and there's a couple examples that you give in the book that I thought were fascinating because if you can prevent chronic diseases in the short term, then we're not paying. So even if you don't even care about the healthy piece, I think the financial incentive should be to solve the problem at the front and keep people healthy. I mean, you guys detail this sick care in the book. And I was like, I mean, this is like something that I totally started to realize over and over again. They won't help you stay healthy. But then when you get really sick and get type 2 diabetes, they'll be like, okay, here's what we need to do to put you on all this expensive stuff. It just, I think I guess the bigger problem that I don't get is I asked my doctor once, I said, why don't we do this? And she said to me, part of the problem is that there's this recognition that people are mobile, so that I'm switching jobs. And when I switch jobs, I'm going to switch healthcare. So why does the insurance company today care about me tomorrow when they know that there's a decent chance I'm going to be on a different plan, next year or the year after? So I'll manage today, not next week.
Well, and candidly, one way you can deal with that is to have a tracking process that says the following insurance companies have the highest likelihood to have you get a chronic disease. And then you can start changing the rates to punish the people who are cheap and short sighted and are willing to sacrifice your health for their profit margin.
Interesting. All right, I want to move into the campaign because you talk about this in the book, and it was interesting. There's been a lot of talk recently about the Democrats attempting to get guys back, especially young men, going after the bro vote. And there was something in the beginning of the book when you were kind of going after the campaign and Biden had been dropped out. And Kamala Harris comes in and you talk about how she's going after the Divine Nine, the sorority of black sororities, and really getting them mobilized. And I thought to myself as I was reading this, is that when they really kind of wrote off men? They made an attempt to really go after women in particular, black women in that particular case. But I was thinking, like, part of the problem with trying to get back men is that they don't realize that they pushed them out in the first place.
Yeah, look, I think there's been a very long pattern that goes back at least to Hillary Clinton and say 2010 or so, for Democrats to be increasingly centered on women and on people who have non-heterosexual lifestyles. If I can use a broad sweep. So as long as you were, a highly entitled woman that we could put on the cover of Vogue, you were terrific. And if you had any one of a dozen belief systems that were outside the norm, you were terrific. And what that did in part is it sent a signal to males that you don't count. You're not part
Yeah.
of this. I had in the Biden administration, I had a very good friend who was a career civil servant who said, in his department, he probably would never get promoted under Biden because he was a white male heterosexual, and therefore they ticked all the wrong boxes for who was going to get promoted. You could be a white male, gay or transsexual and get promoted, or you could be female and get promoted. And of course, the ideal probably was a black female transsexual, which would be the peak of achievement in the modern Democratic Party. Well, all of that sends a signal. Boy, you really see it, for example, with young black males. That famous scene where Obama's lecturing them about why they're not voting for Kamala. And it's clear that Obama doesn't get it. Now, these are people who have been turned off by the Democratic Party precisely because it has sent a signal that they should live in a matriarchy. And candidly, most young males aren't very eager to live. They've already had to endure having female teachers for most of their school years. And the idea that they're now going to spend the rest of their life in a matriarchy just doesn't attract them. And so they left. The party of weakness is probably not going to, in the long run, be the party of most males.
Well, another group that they pushed away that you mentioned in the book is Catholics that have done fairly well with Democrats in the past. And you really spent some time talking about the Al Smith dinner, that New York dinner that benefits some great charities that Catholic Charities oversees. And what a mistake it was for her not to go and then kind of mock the dinner in this video with this Saturday Night Live type skit. It got me thinking because I kind of was wondering as I was reading that. I agree that she screwed up a lot with Catholics for a lot of reasons. But I guess the question is, how impactful do you think, since you've seen it over the years, that one dinner was in her sort of failure to attract Catholics to the campaign?
Well, all I can tell you is that Trump in 2024 became the first Republican to ever get a majority of the Catholic vote. He got 56%. No Republican had ever done that. They've gradually been coming towards the Republican Party on a lot of different issues, of which pro-life was probably the biggest, but also issues of national security, economic growth. I mean, again, Catholics aren't monolithic any more than anybody else. I think and Cliss and I watched it that night on TV, and frankly, it was, as you remember, she was the ambassador to the Vatican, so we had some general notion of the hierarchy, and we knew Cardinal Dolan pretty well. But first of all, when she said she wasn't coming, and Dolan made the comment, the only other person who has never come was Walter Mondale, and he carried one state.
Minnesota.
I thought that was sort of a signal. But then that night, the skit they did was anti-Catholic. I mean, you could tell the people advising Kamala had no understanding of Catholicism and no understanding of the pattern of the church. So here is a nationally televised dinner on behalf of Catholic Charities, hosted by Cardinal Dolan, with Donald Trump and his wife right there. And they get a video that is inherently mocking Catholicism. And you have to think to yourself, I mean, this is almost suicidal. It's almost like, please don't vote for us. And I thought that night, again, out of the 56% Trump got, maybe 3 or 4 were moved by the dinner, but it reinforced for all of them that they weren't going to be for Kamala.
Yeah.
And
it's funny, though.
By the way, remember, the Catholic Church has a huge number of priests and bishops around the country, and all of them got it. I mean, all of them understood this was our opponent.
Yeah. But it was funny because you talked about the fact it's one thing she went one way with Catholics, and then she had an opportunity really to make inroads with Jewish voters in choosing Josh Shapiro. And you wrote that basically she didn't choose Shapiro for 2 reasons. One, that he was Jewish, and 2, that he was kind of power hungry. And I found it interesting as I was reading it, going, okay, she's alienated Catholics, and then she had an opportunity to go in strong with Jewish voters and blew that one too.
Well, I don't know how much it actually hurt her. I'm not sure Shapiro, it was a symbol in most of the Jewish community. But what it did do is it cost her Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And Shapiro was
would she have got, wait. You think that he would have made a difference?
He certainly would have made it close. He's very, very popular. He's very smart. But that was part of the problem. As our mutual friend who you're with every morning, Mark Halperin, said at the time, he's just too smart. I mean, they had one conversation and she realized she didn't want him next to her for 4 years because he was just too smart. She wanted a guy who was slow and stupid, and she got him in Waltz.
Well, in Waltz, though, it's funny because you detailed in the book the first CNN interview, and they blew. And this is the thing that I thought was funny. They inherit this Biden campaign that has so-called experts, all these, high-paid consultants and longtime hands, and they blew the interview because Waltz is seated wrong. He looks more important and like the alpha dog, and like I kind of like. You know this from running for president and being Speaker of the House. I remember back in the day, when you visited, there was like an 18-page, no offense, it was like an 18-page, this is how it works. He comes in, he's seated at this, the chair will be this. You guys were extremely professional. And I'm thinking about your description of this Waltz Harris CNN interview. And the idea that all these experienced hands that she inherited from Biden couldn't pull off an interview on CNN correctly spoke volumes to me about the reality of where the campaign actually stood.
You could say, given that she raised and spent over $1 billion in 9 weeks, that no politician has ever spent so much so badly.
That's
They were they were goofy. Well, first of all, Waltz himself is goofy. But I'll be interested to see if he can win the Senate seat, which I think he's going to run for. Uh, in Minnesota, basically, in Minnesota now, Democrats carry the two biggest counties and lose the entire rest of the state. And it'll be interesting to see if Waltz can sustain that momentum, or as people realize that he really is weird, if he can't even win the Senate seat.
So you don't think he's running for president?
I'd be happy for him to run for president. Look, I think every strange person they can put up is to our advantage. And Seth Keshel, who's somebody I really respect,
he comes on all the time.
He's the leading student of registration in the country, and he said that since the election, there's been over 1 million votes shift from Democrat to Republican in registration. And I think that pattern is going to continue. And it's a combination that Trump is actually trying to solve real problems as seen by the American people. And the Democrats get steadily weirder, which, of course, you and I are talking in the middle of what's going to be, I think, this is going to be a very weird weekend. We start the week with Los Angeles, but there are 1,500 sites for demonstrations on Saturday. And I suspect also there'll be demonstrations against the Army parade on Saturday. And I suspect the Democrats will be defending the demonstrators. I posted the other night on both X and Truth Social that gang lives matter as the new Democratic slogan. And I got like 38,000 likes and 4,200 reposts within a day. Because it hit a nerve. And every time you say something weird, 3 Democrats jump up and say, "That's right."
So I keep thinking to myself, and I'm being serious when I say this, that it shouldn't be this easy. I look at Gavin Newsom, Tim Walz, AOC. I'm like, they're on the side of criminals and lawlessness. And I never thought that we would be in a place where they might be heroes to their far left. Maybe that's true. I don't know, because I'm not there. But I got to believe that the average American says, I don't agree with looting. I don't agree with Apple stores getting broken into and smashing windows and burning cars. And when they side with those people, I got to believe that, like, to your point about Seth Keshel's analysis, more and more people are getting pushed to the Republican side because they're like, I don't want to be part of that.
Well, I think that's a big part of what's going on. And I think the reason is in part that they've drunk the Kool-Aid. I think it's an almost religious cult. They get together in a room. I had a good friend who's very sophisticated and knows a lot of liberal Democrats, and who said when he's in a social gathering with them, they actually think this stuff's smart. I think it's great that Newsom is standing up to Trump, and they have no notion that most Americans actually don't want to have people carrying foreign flags around burning cars in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, and that being the defender of the demonstrators is about a 15% position, and they just cannot unlock from it.
But I guess the question is, it's kind of like if you were looking at a sports team, you would say you guys need a rebuilding year. Because I look at these people and I say Gavin Newsom might be doing himself some short-term favors in a potential Democratic primary because he stood up to Trump. But the bottom line is the average person with a brain says, you stop gaslighting me. I'm watching with my own eyes you guys burning cars. It's not peaceful. It's not, you're attacking federal agents. The police chief himself has said this over and over again. We're overwhelmed. We need help. This got out of control. And I feel like when Democrats double down on that, most average people who aren't far left, far right, but the folks in the middle say, I can't be part of that. And I don't know how anybody can dig. It's one thing to cast a vote if you're a member of Congress. But if you have the video of Gavin Newsom saying the stuff that he does, I don't understand how that's even a potential president of the United States.
Look, I mean, when you look at, and I saw, I think it was doing Maria Bartiromo, but I saw a series of clips of Democrats talking about these were peaceful demonstrations. And you may remember there was one reporter in Los Angeles who said, well, they seem really happy and friendly gathered around the burning cars.
Just a lot of people having fun. A lot of people having fun.
I mean, you have to think to yourself, these people are certifiably crazy. And there are enough of them that they band together that the craziness seems normal. And so they go out and say these things knowing that in their group, that's exactly right. Now, the problem is their group is shrinking. I mean, the decline, and this is a point that Keschel made, there's not a single state in the country where voter registration shifted from Republican to Democrat. In every single state since the election, the marginal moves, some of them have been relatively small, but the moves have been consistently in every state from the Democrats to the Republicans in registration. Now, at a rational level, you would think that their professionals would be saying, this is really a bad sign. But you can't say it because they're so certain in an almost religious sense that what they stand for is so true that they can't allow any kind of rational data or rational analysis to affect the virtue of their commitment.
Is there anybody on their side that you think is either A, doing it well, or B, will be a really strong candidate for president if they were nominated?
Well, this is probably a sign I'm too much of a Washington insider in my knowledge. If there was one person who could break through, I would think it would be Rahm Emanuel.
But he can't get through the primary, can he?
Well, I don't know, but no, but he'd have to get through the primary by destroying the left. Now, whether or not he has the toughness to do it and can raise the money to do it, I mean, in a sense, you could argue Shapiro, that Shapiro might, I mean, or you could argue potentially the governor of Michigan if she's willing to do it. But the problem for all of them is, this is why Sam Nunn never ran for president, because Nunn, who was one of the great national security Democrats and very, very popular in Georgia and basically pretty popular in the country, but he knew that in a Democratic primary, the left would destroy him.
Yeah.
So what Shapiro has to think about and what the governor of Michigan has to think about is, if I stand up to these people, do I become so attacked that I become a polarizing figure and I inevitably lose? Or can I beat them? Can I stand up to them and beat them? I mean, for example, if Schumer runs, and I'm beginning to think he won't, but if Schumer runs, he can only win by destroying AOC. He cannot win with her still at her current level of popularity. I'm not sure in the Democratic primary, if you look at what's happening in the mayor's race, where I think we're going to get a socialist mayor of New York, who's also deeply anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, and has said a number of hateful things in general. But I think the odds are very high he's going to beat Cuomo. Well, if that's the nature of the Democratic Party in New York State, then I don't see how you beat AOC. And if you don't beat AOC, you now have a senator who is to the left of Bernie Sanders and younger and more energetic and more radical.
Could she? She won't be old enough. I want to talk. You kind of go through the branding of the MAGA movement in the book, and it got me thinking: is it transferable? Could it be handed to J.D. Vance or anyone else for that matter, or does it live and die with Donald Trump?
I don't think it could be handed, but I think it can be earned. I think J.D. Vance is much closer to Trump than George H.W. Bush was to Reagan. And ultimately, most of the Reagan support in the election in '88 shifted to Bush. It left him in '92 after he signed a tax increase. But there was a brief moment there when, even though Bush was in no way a Reaganite, nonetheless, the Reagan people were so grateful for 8 years of him standing next to Reagan that it gave him huge advantages. JD actually probably is pretty close to a MAGA person, and I think is probably authentically represents an anti-establishment intensity that fits sort of the general MAGA profile. So I think he's the most likely nominee. I mean, if the administration succeeds, it's very hard for me to see how the sitting vice president fails to get nominated. Now, whether they win the general election is a different question.
I want to end our conversation with the way you end the book, because you actually phrased this brilliantly. You call it the challenge of 2026, meaning keeping the House and the Senate. Now, I think the way I'd like to frame this with you is, if you were trying to explain this to viewers, how critical is it to maintain a House and Senate majority? I think the Senate is frankly easy, so let's just focus on the House. How critical is it for Donald Trump and the MAGA movement to maintain a House Republican majority in 2026?
Well, it's a central intersection. If Trump can pull off what Franklin Roosevelt did and actually increase seats in the House, we will have affirmed the direction we're moving in. He'll have 2 more years of real reform and a chance then to elect a successor who continues the same momentum. If Trump loses the House in 26, he's back in a Nancy Pelosi problem. There'll be huge investigations, probable impeachments, fights over money. I mean, it'll be a mess. So, in my mind, and I felt this way starting in October when I knew Trump was going to win, the critical, this was true for us, by the way. When we won in 94, we were the first House Republican majority in 40 years. But in 96, no House Republican majority had been reelected since 1928. So in a very real sense, 1996 was the key election, because once we won there, we shifted the balance of power permanently in Washington. The Democrats had held for 60 years to 4 for Republicans, and after 1994, we've held it for 22 years to 8 for the Democrats. So this makes 26 decisive. If Trump can keep the House in 26, then I think you see the MAGA revolution really institutionalized, and you see a base then for the Republicans to win the general election in 28. And if you can get one more presidency in the Trump tradition, I suspect we will have permanently changed Washington.
Speaker Newt Gingrich, thanks for being here. Trump's Triumph, America's Greatest Comeback is the book. Another great bestseller for good reason. The historical approach, the way you bring your personal perch at events and everything into this. I loved the read. I thank you for coming. Thank you for your friendship, and appreciate your fight.
Great to be with you, as always. And I'll see you at 9 o'clock in the morning.
You will, every morning. Take care. Guys, thanks for being with us. Look forward to tomorrow. Seth Keshel is going to join us to break down everything. We will have an episode tomorrow, the 4th of July. So after your fireworks, your barbecue, hopefully you're getting Riverbend steaks, by the way. I hope you got some of those. That's what I'm cooking on the 4th of July. I'll tell you that right now. Some of those hot dogs. I got a little of the beef and the steak chef. RiverbendRanch.com. Sean, by the way, get you a great deal. $20 off your first order. Anyway, we'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.